Enemy of the state.
An enemy of the state.
Enemy of the state.
Dank Podstash.
All right, we're back with episode 6 of Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. I'm Nick, and I'm here as always with my co-host David. What's going on, David?
Not a whole lot. How are you doing?
Doing great. This Podstash is paired with a Sierra Nevada Oktoberfest, so really great.
Delicious. Well, for everybody listening, if you want to support the podcast, check out our shops at dankpodstash.threadless.com or blackmarketmemes.threadless.com. And if you want to advertise your business on our podcast, you can send us an email at dankpodstash@gmail.com. And check out Washington State Anarchists and Libertarians Facebook group, and you can join us and discuss how to make all of our problems go away. And we're here with Mitch today from Agoristball and Agorist Memes, and he's going to talk to us a little bit about crypto and philosophy and who knows what else.
Yeah, what's up, David? What's up, Nick? Feels good to be back in the world of podcasting. If any of you don't know, I actually tried doing podcasting a long time ago on Journalistic Revolution, and that kind of eventually just kind of fizzled out. But I'm looking to eventually get back into that again, so hopefully not long after doing this today, I can get back to doing it, and this time on the Agoristball YouTube channel. I mean the Facebook page.
That'd be awesome.
It's been a while. But yeah,
very interested in hearing that.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. That's for sure.
Yeah. And hopefully some of the stuff we talk about here today can give you an idea of what I would talk about more in depth on there. But I know you guys wanted to talk a little bit about cryptocurrency today. I definitely don't consider myself any sort of expert by any means. There's a lot of people who I know who definitely know a lot more than I do, but I feel like I could at least help you guys out with any sort of how would I phrase this? Sorry guys, it's been a while. It's funny how that sounds out of context. But I could basically give you the basic advice of like who to go to, who to avoid, how to avoid the shady exchanges. Don't put your money into BitConnect. The simple stuff.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for as a crypto virgin, just where to start pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah. And first off, are you familiar with BitConnect at all? It was a big Ponzi scheme that basically happened, which in a way, and I feel like not many people are emphasizing this as much as they should, it's shit like this that can really give crypto as a whole a bad black eye in the greater eyes of the public.
I'm not familiar with BitConnect.
And I'm not trying to advocate the state intervention by any means.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with BitConnect, but the one scheme, or I guess I don't know if it was a scheme or not, but it was MitGox or MTGOX, the former Magic the Gathering trading site, online trading site that ended up trading in crypto and getting hacked. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there was something about them selling crypto that they didn't. They're selling Bitcoin that they didn't have. I don't know the full story behind it, but every now and then in the daily news updates that I try to listen to that relate to cryptocurrency, every now and then I'll hear something about the people who were involved in that paying off the people who got screwed. So I guess that's still been going on, and haven't really heard much about it lately. But you really got to keep an eye out on different exchanges. And this is kind of where it becomes a give-take kind of situation as well. Like for people who are new, I normally recommend something like Coinbase. And it kills me to recommend them because they are the most regulated one out there. But also they're the most basic. They're the most easy one to use. Frankly, if you lose your money in any sort of way, they're pretty easy to work with. I was able to recover my account easily through them. There's a lot of cons though, in the sense that they're heavily regulated. They're taxed the living crap out of them. They're like buying crypto from them is I forget what the fee is, but you can get it cheaper from other places is pretty much it.
Well, Coinbase is a name I've heard before, so that makes sense. And as far as a starting point, even though they have all the regulation and taxing and whatnot, would that probably be a good place just to learn it before you branch out then?
Yeah, basically. Well, the process of like hooking up your bank too, of like selling your crypto and trading it, and trading it for fiat, it's a lot more easy through Coinbase, I've found. The only other two that I've set that up with were, what are they called? There was the one which was, why is it slipping my memory right now? It was founded by the guys who Zuckerberg screwed.
Oh yeah, and they made a bunch of money off that, huh?
The Winklevoss twins.
The Winklevoss twins. They actually their own. They basically have their own exchange. What's another one that's extremely heavily regulated in the same sense of Coinbase. But at the same time, it's another one of those ones that I would recommend. But one thing that I will say is the interface is a little bit more complex. It's not as easy to navigate as Coinbase, whereas Coinbase I felt like was more direct. And the other one was Uphold, which Uphold is good too. Kind of similar. It's kind of like the bastard child between the two the one that's slipping my memory. It's going to drive me nuts because as soon as I get off here, I'm going to have someone message me. Or at some point, whenever this thing goes live, someone's going to say what I'm thinking of. And I never used it. I signed up for it. I never used it. But the other one was Uphold, which is kind of like, I felt like was like a good medium between the two. It was a little bit more complicated, but at the same time, it was somewhat more direct like Coinbase. Also, there were more options. Like this is kind of a weird thing. So on Coinbase, the options are Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, and/or Bcash, Ethereum, Litecoin, and there was all this hype as to what the next one would be that they would add. Like, oh my God, what's it going to be? Is it going to be Dash? Is it going to be Ripple? Like, no, they fucking add Ethereum Classic, the cryptocurrency that was originally forked off from because a hacker owns 50% of the supply, supposedly.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, with anything like this, you got to be careful about the shady people because there's always going to be shady people looking to take advantage.
Oh yeah, that's like there's a lot of that's where BitConnect and some of these other ICO scams come in. You got to be careful with some of those. They'll promise you the world, but the good majority of them cannot deliver.
Let me jump in.
People
with
have, and I'm not saying all
that.
ICOs are bad either.
Let me jump in with a question real quick about that, about getting scammed from the coin exchanges. One thing, I think you're probably familiar with him, but Andreas Antonopoulos, he's been on Jopra, and he has his own channel and whatnot. Bitcoin Jesus, I think they call him. He was talking about as far as
Bitcoin Jesus.
Yeah, he was talking
I know.
as far as the Mitgox stuff and all that. The problem that occurred there, and I guess with other places where people have lost crypto, is that it was centralized. Like they were storing their crypto in those exchanges versus in their own wallets for ease of trading. Is that what was going on? And so it was able to get hacked as far as storing them in one central location.
Well, yeah, that's why a lot of people would recommend do not keep your coins on an exchange. Like I like when I first got some Bitcoin back in the day, it was like $20 worth. And when it really started exploding like that, obviously you don't want to keep that on like Coinbase or anywhere like that, because even if you do get hacked and Coinbase is willing to help you, is that really a guarantee that you're going to get any of this back?
Sure.
I've never been in that situation, so I really don't know, and I would much rather not want to be in that situation and find out. There's a few ways you can store Bitcoins. There's paper wallets, which are very secure. It's literally just a piece of paper with a QR code printed on it, one to send the Bitcoins to go onto the piece of paper, and one which you would scan it on a phone to basically remove the Bitcoins from that wallet and put onto your phone. It's a good way of storing it safely. It's definitely, though, got the fault of being a piece of paper.
Sure.
Mobile wallets are good, but there's always the risk. You're basically giving someone else money to watch over your your shit basically. And in my opinion, I still think hardware wallets work the best. I have a Ledger myself. I think those work really well. Trezor is another one. The only thing with those is they're not cheap. Like,
explain hardware wallets a little bit, if you would.
Hardware wallets are basically like it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a piece of hardware that you would plug into your computer, and it basically acts as a security device for your crypto. The only way that someone could access these wallets through these things would be through your passphrase that you were given when you get one of these, and you could always reset these things as well. But at least that's what it's like with the Ledger that I have. They're
so is it like a
once
USB
again, really,
drive, or
honestly, it's a lot like a USB drive, especially the model that I have. It honestly, like when I first saw this thing, before I actually looked into it, I'm pretty sure I actually thought it was a USB drive. But no, it looks a lot like one. But there's like a tiny little screen on it, 2 buttons on top. Or at least that's what it's like with the Ledger. I know that other ones look fairly different. But you basically plug it into the computer, and everything you do is through the device. Anytime you send something, you have to press a button on the device to send it.
nice.
It's basically the safest way to store your crypto.
That sounds like the way to go.
Of course, it's not foolproof either. Because you're definitely going to want to make sure you have those your passphrase backed up, because that's basically your private key. And yeah, I wouldn't recommend keeping it on a computer or anything like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, you lose that private key, you're done.
Yeah, you're fucked.
Yep.
There's no way of getting that thing back, man. I hate to tell you. I really hate to tell you, but you definitely want to make sure you have that saved. But this is the case with just about any other good wallet that lets you have access to your private key. Which not all wallets let you have access to your private key, but a good majority of them do. I tend to like those ones a lot better because, if I do lose my shit, at least that gives me. Once again, it's never happened, but I'd much rather have that key be there than me having to go to the people who run this specific wallet app for iPhone or Android and be like, "Hey guys, I lost my shit. Can you help me?" I'd much rather have to do that, like have the private key and hope that would work, which from what I've read it does, than go the other way around.
Well, that's kind of the whole point, is having the power in
Yep.
your hands versus somebody else's, right? Decentralization on a mass scale.
Well, exactly. That's the way I would much rather see it too. In a sense, the way I see it, I'm when it comes to crypto, I'm my own bank.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this really is like it's I'm not having to. If honestly, the way I've always looked at it, bigger, more regulated ones like Coinbase could be viewed like something like one of the bigger banks, but the thing is, there's still always that risk. You never know if one of these things would ever go under. You never know what could possibly go wrong, especially in the world of crypto. And I think that sort of bubble that we saw when people started dogpiling in on Bitcoin a year or so back, that kind of showed the potential of that. So, yeah, I try to see the good, the bad, and the ugly.
No, you got to. You got to have a balanced view.
But, yeah.
Nice. That's super informative stuff.
Yeah, I'm even over here just sitting here quietly absorbing all this information.
Yeah, there's a lot. Like, the thing was, when I first got Bitcoin, I saw the libertarian anarchist side of it, and that's what drew me into it. But I never really thought much of the tech or anything around it until that sort of bubble came around. And then once that starts going, it's like, oh my god, like, okay, now I should at least look into this, because like $20 now has me at $40. That's at least something. But you know, it's interesting to see what has gone right in it, what has been really cool. Like, I know Dash has been really successful in Venezuela, but at the same time, it's really kind of tragic to see shit. And to go back to the beginning here, like BitConnect, where basically people set up this Ponzi scheme: give us your Bitcoins and make this much back. And of course, that eventually collapsed in on itself. And it was pretty hilarious too, because you went to the website and the fucking investment structure was in the shape of a triangle.
Oh God!
Like, how much more obvious does a scam have to be?
It's like that clip from The
Also,
Office.
clearly the Illuminati.
Yeah, for real. BitConnect was the Illuminati currency.
That's hilarious. Hey,
Oh,
speaking
my
of the technology around crypto and whatnot, the blockchain technology, that's the thing that I'm most excited about. Once again, from listening to Bitcoin Jesus talk, and about my favorite example from him was he sold his car using Bitcoin, and he went on to explain how it can be used as a ledger for title transactions and all that kind of stuff. And I thought that was really neat. And then he went on to talk about just all kinds of different tech companies finding all kinds of different innovative ways to use blockchain. And I'm really excited about that. That's something I've barely scratched the surface of, but really gets me going more than the actual cryptocurrency side of it.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of really interesting. For me, it's the crypto side is a little bit more interesting for sentimental reasons, which is kind of weird. But we can get back to that later if you want.
Sure.
But basically, what really interests me is the way this sort of ledger can be integrated into the emerging smart technologies that we see coming up around us. The Alexas, the smartphones sitting next to you, the up and coming computers, the tablets, things like that. That's where I really got excited about Ethereum, although I'm kind of starting to have my doubts, although I really hope that it has some sort of bounce back when it comes to decentralized applications. But of course, that doesn't mean that they aren't the only one out there too. Like Aptoid, the popular third-party apps provider for Android, they now have their own ICO running called AppCoin, I think, something like that. So everyone's trying to really kind of get in on this more. And I believe Walmart was actually looking into integrating some sort of blockchain, because it is a good way of documenting transactions. I want to say it was Walmart. It was some kind of big grocery provider.
Imagine Walmart accepting crypto. What a world we would live in.
Make an ANCOM cry.
Oh, it'd be pretty crazy to jump into Walmart and pay for your whatever with crypto. I actually just walked out of Walmart yesterday to a guy waving a pistol around. So that's Walmart for you.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
That sounds just like a Walmart.
Typical Walmart day.
It sounds just like Walmart.
Yep. It'd be a clash to go pay for your stuff in Bitcoin and then watch the people of Walmart after that. But what were you talking about with your sentimental reasons for the crypto exciting you more than the blockchain?
This is like the weirdest. You ever have one of those things where you have an idea early on in life and then someone else creates it and you're just like, holy shit?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That is literally what happened with me in cryptocurrency. That is literally what happened with me in cryptocurrency. Back when I was in elementary, they always had like that morning, write a paragraph about such and such in your imaginary world or whatever's written on the board. And I guess one morning it was put on the board, what is the money in your world? And the guy next to me said candy or something like that. I decided, I don't know why, like this was around the time that like I was really starting to think phones and shit. Like even flip phones back in the day I thought were really fucking cool. Like the Razors used to blow my mind.
Oh,
now
yeah.
they're like vintage. And like I thought, what if you like had like a way to like, have your money all be on a computer and just like transfer it all that way? Like I never imagined doing it the way it's done now, like, but just the idea of it was was something. But yeah, I got an F that day.
terrible.
No, my teacher literally just couldn't wrap her head around it. Like, mind you, this was like the early 2000s when like computers were still fairly new. Like, I didn't even have a computer at the time, which, you know, made me even more interested in all this shit. Like, I didn't get a computer until around like 2010. Like, so.
Well, today I learned Mitch is the real crypto Jesus.
That's right.
That's why I'll jokingly say I'm the real Satoshi Nakamoto. Hey, if Craig Wright can say he's Satoshi, so can I.
Nice. Crypto Agora Jesus.
Oh man.
So,
which that's always something crazy to think about, how no one knows who Satoshi is.
that is crazy. And that story around that is crazy too, about I think he was he in San Francisco? The guy that the mainstream media picked up on as Satoshi because he had the same name or something
Asian
like
guy,
that. Yeah. Poor guy. He got just harassed.
Yeah. Yeah, poor guy. He probably, you know, honestly, that guy probably was not Satoshi. But
Didn't sound like it.
He's kind of become a little bit of a meme though because of like the way he denied it so fervently. Like probably the wrong word, but the way he denied it to the bone just kind of became enduring. It's like maybe he is actually Satoshi. But ironically
no one can
enough,
know my secret.
Yeah, for real. That's exactly what you would say if you were Satoshi. But no, there was some other kid who lived not far from him who was one of the other candidates for it. And unfortunately, he was terminally ill at one point. And it would appear that he may most likely be the candidate to be Satoshi Nakamoto. At least from what I've looked at, he's one of the most likely, in my opinion.
Really?
Only because of this one reason. Around the time when Satoshi went MIA, his responses were becoming a lot less frequent, much like him becoming a lot less frequenting social media as his terminal illness was unfortunately taking his life.
Wow, that'd be pretty tragic.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty sad when you think about it. Yeah, and then you have someone like Craig Wright who tries to claim he's Satoshi, and when push comes to shove to provide evidence, he bitches out and is like, "Oh no, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't bring myself to do it."
Give him a little fame.
And then I think at one point for real, how desperate are you for 5 seconds of fame?
Seriously.
Another thing is apparently he got in trouble. Allegedly, he got in trouble for basically, I guess he was installing Bitcoin mining software on family members' computers without them realizing it.
That's kind of fun.
Which is, and pretty much just reaping the benefits from all that, which is a pretty shitty thing to do if you think about it.
You know, that's something too that I wanted to ask you. Well, now that you bring it up, I've heard about if you're downloading off of torrent sites or whatever that people have. I don't know if this is a thing or not because I don't know a fucking thing about this, but have integrated, I don't know, code or whatever to get your computer to do that.
Yeah, there's ways to do that. I don't know any of the specifics about it. All I know was there was some kind of report that came out that a good majority of Monero was being mined from that, allegedly. I don't know if that's true, which I'm a big fan of Monero, too. But it's actually one of my favorite cryptos. But as far as that goes, yeah, I've heard things about viruses that basically install things on your computer that basically cloud mine it. And yeah, a hacker basically reaps the benefits while your electrical bill goes up.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because I don't know if you know that. That's kind of the give and take scenario of mining. You know, I've looked into mining before, but what's always preventing me from getting into it is the give and take with electrical bills. Like, if you mine, your power, it's going to be consuming more power in one way or another.
You know, that's actually something that
same
comes
thing,
up
which is also
here in Washington where David and I are, because there's a lot of hydroelectric power, and I see news stories about it semi-frequently, not so much anymore, but there was like an influx of miners that moved to the state because power was cheap, and they were drawing so much power that, of course, the state decided to ramp up costs, even though it's pretty efficient power that's being drawn through hydroelectric with the dams and whatnot. And so they're kind of screwing over a lot of the miners, ramping up the cost.
Yeah, the whole mining thing is it's a ball game that honestly I've never really tried my hand at. I've looked into it, but I've never really. The only thing that I regret when it comes to mining is I did not mine Bitcoin back around 2011 when I first read about it. Because holy shit, I could have mined that shit on my old computer back in the day.
Oh shit, isn't that all of our regrets? We look back.
It is the greatest regret I will
Jesus.
ever have. Yeah, just looking back at I don't know if I should, I probably shouldn't do this because I could get expelled from school if they see I did this on this computer. Motherfucker! You dumbass! That's one of those, like, I want to go back and beat up my past self moments.
Oh, for sure. I have a million of those.
Yeah. You could have been a millionaire, man!
Yeah.
Instead,
Bitcoin-funded time machines now.
Yeah, for real. I don't know. We now have Bitcoin watches, apparently. I was hearing something about that on Crypto Daily the other day.
What is that? I haven't heard anything about that.
Like an Apple Watch?
I don't know what the case for it. It wasn't like an Apple Watch. It was like a watch, but apparently some like European watchmaker had designed some like cryptocurrency Bitcoin watch. I looked it up. It looked really freaking nice. I'll actually have to send you a picture if I can find it again. But the only way you could pay for it obviously was in crypto or in Bitcoin specifically, and it was hella expensive.
Oh man, sounds really fucking cool though.
I ain't affording that anytime soon. Yeah, it's one of those nice things. It's like it's cool to see it catch on with the culture. You know what I mean?
For sure.
Like it's that kind of stuff that I think really needs to happen for cryptocurrency to ever really make its way to becoming anything greater. Which is kind of why, in a way, Dash has become my favorite cryptocurrency, even with all the controversies that have been going on. Just the speed is immensely great. It is so fast. I have never, aside from Ripple, which I have never used, which I'm told is even faster apparently. Dash is the only one that I could see catching on in a wider culture just because of its speed. However, at the same time, while I'm saying this, it seems like Ripple is currently making moves to kind of buy up celebrities.
Well, what do you mean by the speed?
If you guys don't know anything about
what's the speed have to do with it?
How fast do you get the crypto? How fast, when I press send, do you receive what I just sent you?
Okay, so transfer speeds. That's pretty
and that's
cool.
There's been a lot of transfer speeds, basically, and that's kind of where the fork came in with Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, where the people Bitcoin Cash, roughly, this is from what I've seen, what it is. Bitcoin Cash wanted to increase the block sizes, while the people of what they've dubbed Bitcoin Core, but I call it Bitcoin OG to piss them off. Basically, they wanted to implement Lightning, which is somewhat similar to what Litecoin has been using, and Litecoin has always been really good in my books. I rather like Litecoin, so seeing that they want to go in that direction, I'm like, hell yeah, let's go that way. And for some reason, all these other people wanted to go for the larger blocks instead. And there's certainly some arguments to be made between the two. Honestly, if I saw recently Graham, who you guys had on recently,
yes,
had posted something more pro Bitcoin Cash. So honestly, if I was to ever have a conversation in the future with anyone about Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, I feel like he would probably be a good person to talk to, because I've also dealt with a lot of people who get weirdly emotional about a fork.
Huh.
But yeah, it's Bitcoin Cash is closer to Satoshi's vision. Well, how do we know things would have changed? And You know, honestly, the more Ayn Rand high school kid inside me who read Atlas Shrugged can't help but be reminded of Rearden Metal and how people doubted that in the first act of the book, or Rearden Steel. And, you know, such as the same with Segwit and Lightning is the way I'm seeing it. But maybe that's just me. Maybe I don't understand the technical end on the other side. This is one of those things in crypto where, honestly, it's cool to see where the conversation is going as compared to some of these other ones where it's like, oh my God, why did that happen? Because I don't even hate Bitcoin Cash. There was someone out there who figured out, and I haven't really looked into this, but apparently they, just from what I've seen, they just have figured out how to send Bitcoin Cash without actually being connected to the internet.
Oh, what? That's nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. What?
Yeah.
What?
Which that's the type of shit which is like, oh my God, that's fucking awesome. Like, why does this have to turn into like a brand heist scenario? Like, I would love to love this. Oh man.
People get emotional and fanboy about some of the weirdest stuff sometimes.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. But somewhere in the middle of all that emotional bullshit, there's actually an interesting conversation I think there is to be had. But problem is you get like a lot of these people like Roger Ver out there who he is possibly like, I was talking to a friend of mine who's more pro Bitcoin Cash, and I was like, you know, I'm not really a fan of this Roger Ver guy. He seems kind of like he seems kind of shady, admittedly. Just from like it seems like he's lied in quite a few of his interviews. Doug Polk on YouTube actually put up a video kind of showing some of that. And after that, he showed me, oh, no, go check out this other guy. And I can't remember his name right now, but he was this really well-spoken guy. I was like, oh, yeah, that's really good. So it's like, I guess there's sort of this two-sided coin thing going on there. But yeah, the whole Bitcoin Cash thing it's a whole different debacle than the Ethereum Classic debacle. The reason why that Ethereum Classic was forked off from was because a hacker basically hacked them and stole a good portion of the supply. And
Jeez.
With that, if the currency ever took off, they could just sell everything and, you know, crash it.
Yeah, it's dangerous business.
Yeah, so they basically, Ethereum Classic was now Ethereum Classic, while Ethereum became the new currency. Here, if you don't mind, I just gotta let my dogs out real quick here.
No problem. Gotta free the doggos.
Alrighty. So I'm so sorry about that. That was I feel like a jackass now because I interviewed a guy a long time ago on an old show, and he did that to me.
We'll just edit it out. No big deal.
Okay,
So,
cool.
let me ask you this, Mitch. In your opinion, what's the best method for removing statism from the planet?
Removing statism. That's a big question.
It is.
A big one.
Yeah, that's weird because my position to anarchy has changed so much in the last year, of looking at it more as like a characteristic of the world that I eventually want to see. As for getting rid of the state, and this is where we're about to dive into more into philosophy than anything else.
I figured it was a good segue.
Jump on in it.
No, hella good segue. Especially because I got a book by H.L. Mencken sitting right in front of me.
Nice.
Yeah, Mencken's my spirit animal, I guess you could say. But basically, the way I see it, the state can't really not exist until man kind of evolves into whatever's next. Until, you know, we basically overcome our current condition. I kind of take an influence from Nietzsche and H.L. Mencken when constructing this, and eventually I got to upload this article that I pretty much already have it written. I just need to proof it more and everything.
Where are you uploading it to?
Probably Steam it, which if you want to follow me on Steam, look up I believe at Mitchell.WeCheck. Or you could just look up Cypherpunk Scribe, one of the two.
Well, send us a link and we'll link it with the episode.
All right, there. I mean, basically the whole thing is just shit posting on there right now, but okay.
Glorious.
Hey,
It's
we
basically
all
just
know
shit
about
posting
that.
on D-Mania, but you know what? I'll do it. No, let's do it.
Nice.
But basically, I don't think that, you know, anarchy, the way I see it, is a characteristic of the world where Nietzsche's Overman exists, or something similar from my own perspective. And the way I see it, the superior man is what will take, who will be the one carrying the torch into the future to the Overman. And for me, the superior man, and obviously because we're on here talking anarchy and everything, I'd like to hope that you guys don't think I'm a Nazi.
Of course not.
But oh man, obviously I don't see this as a race thing. For me, there are smart people who would be more superior and dumb fucking people in every race, gender, and ethnicity.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that the more smart people and the more superior people need the freedom necessary to do what they need to, what needs to be done to basically advance people. Basically give someone like Elon Musk the free reins he needs to get SpaceX off the ground, I guess, would be one way to put it.
That's interesting.
The idea of like breeding that, I think, is almost through anything like eugenics. But
There's
I definitely
gonna
think
have-
that you can one day be a piece of shit and, you know, build yourself up to be a better person too as well. So you can go from being the most inferior lowlife, and you could also build yourself up to, you know, becoming a better person and becoming that superior man. I think it's something more deeper and something more personal, I guess you could say.
Yeah, there's definitely going to have to be a mindset shift in the majority of people, instead of looking outwardly for someone to solve their problems and realizing that they can only look inwardly, you know, instead of being like, hey, I need you to fix this problem for me. They realize that they're the only ones that can fix the issue and not be looking to some form of authority before we can ever reach anything even close to an anarchist society.
Well, exactly. You need to really adopt that whole DIY attitude. Get it done yourself. Like, roll up your sleeves, spit on your hands, and fucking start chopping wood.
Oh, yeah.
Well, okay, so there's my question here then.
Like, that's kind of one of the reasons why I want to get into agriculture in the future. Go on.
Absolutely, yeah. So you're talking about people like Elon Musk kind of paving a way into the future as far as technology and stuff?
You're going to bring up the subsidies, aren't you?
No, not at all. I'm just curious what you mean by
No.
what you mean by letting the people with these ideas just do their thing and help advance the human race in that way. And I was trying to look for the connection between every person looking into themselves to find, to advance.
Look into yourself, the way you can be the best person you can be. And really, some of those who truly excel and know how to get shit done and create great things, I think that they should have the freedom to do those great things. You know?
Okay, yeah.
Don't have a Tesla shut down.
Absolutely.
Like, let them find a way.
I would put I can't remember his name, and I feel bad because I never ever remember it, and I reference it on the Podstash so often. But the guy who started Detroit Threat Management Center, I'd put him on that level of people who need to be allowed to continue with their great ideas. I just can't. I'm so impressed with what he's done with that.
I know exactly who you are talking about too. This is not a good day for me to remember names.
That's all right. I'll look it up while we're talking.
Yeah. But if I'm not mistaken, wasn't he in a Reason.com documentary about anarchy in Detroit?
I'm sure he was.
Yeah. It's kind of weird. After I leave my city, my hometown, then I start hearing about all this anarchy and liberty stuff there.
Oh, is Detroit your hometown?
Yeah, I'm originally a northerner.
I knew you were a dirty Red Wings fan, so.
Would that not be self-evident enough?
Oh boy.
Scoreboard. Scoreboard. That's yeah. But the way I see it, you can't really bring about a new world until you bring about a new humanity. And
True.
I don't think that's something that's just going to happen overnight, like some grand mass awakening. I think it's something that's going to happen slowly, but surely. And once again, to go back to H.L. Mencken there at the beginning, there's a quote he has where it's like, I believe in a world with little to no government, one which barely escapes being a government at all. I only believe that this world will exist when I have long after I have died and taken up my public duties in hell.
I agree 100% with that. I'm not at all under the illusion that I'm going to see, a free voluntary society in my lifetime. And I think that's kind of a hard thing for a lot of people to get past. I was actually just having a conversation with my wife about when people say, so what would you do if the state was gone tomorrow, either as a challenge to your position or as really looking into what you're saying. And that's just not realistic. If the state's gone tomorrow, we won't have anarchy because people aren't, prepared mentally in themselves to rule themselves.
As much as it kills me to say this, quote unquote, faction wars.
I will not name drop him.
I refuse to too. I don't want to give him attention.
No, none for him. He gets none.
But still, like it is true though. There, kind of even to reference the video games Fallout or something like that, you would have factions who would all want to compete to exploit people in some way or another.
Sure.
I mean, if it happened that quickly, especially through, some kind of violent upheaval or something, it would definitely end up like that.
Yeah, violent revolutions never seem to go well.
No.
There doesn't seem to be a good track record of those.
It just comes back to you're taking away the state, right, in the violent revolution, and people don't know what to do with themselves because they're focused on the goal of eliminate the state, not what's after, so a state inevitably forms. Well,
here's one. That's actually a great way of putting it. But one good way of looking at this is almost, and I find it funny that I'm actually about to reference this. My English teacher would be very proud. The works of Shakespeare, this play Julius Caesar. It's not so much about Caesar himself, if you haven't read it or seen the play, as much as it is about Brutus, Cassius, Mark Antony, and the whole everything that ensues afterwards. And really the moral of the whole thing is don't kill the dictator, because that only unleashes an evil greater than your own.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much what happens, is they kill Caesar, and what happens after that is Mark Antony and his side basically go to war with Brutus and Cassius, and it basically leads to these two other sides which seek power going to war with each other.
Sure.
And in a way, I remember I didn't really see how great that whole thing was until now, and I really wish I had kept that copy of Julius Caesar.
That's always the way. You find it later.
Yeah, it's a good one though. Just looking back on that that sort of set and how we can see it now, or if things were to go wrong. I mean, even look at Libya. Libya is probably the best example of that. They took out Gaddafi, right and now look at it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Isn't there a rampant slave market in Libya right now?
Yeah, there's a rampant slave market. Libya is now. Is it still categorized as a failed state?
Oh, I don't know.
I believe so.
I think it is. Taking out Gaddafi was probably not the best course of actions.
Well,
What are you talking about? America can do no wrong.
America.
yeah, America. That's right. Fuck yeah.
I love how that whole phrase. I love how the phrase "America" went from being sarcastic, making fun of the over-nationalistic, to being something that fucking nationalistic people will now proudly wear on a T-shirt that was
I
sold
know.
at a 7-Eleven.
It's mind-boggling.
It's awful.
It's literally the satire became reality.
Well, I know
hey, man, everything like.
I was gonna say I know it's always referenced, and it's getting kind of old, but god damn it, is it not Idiocracy or getting there?
It's like you were talking about in the chat the other day, Mitch. K-Fab or whatever, you know.
Oh,
it's all-
kayfabe.
Yeah, kayfabe. That's what it is. It's all a big show, and definitely like Idiocracy.
Yeah, it doesn't. It helps that the guy, the president from Idiocracy, wasn't he like a pro wrestler, porn star, or some shit?
No, it's
Yeah.
Terry Crews.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
in the movie. I see
Yeah,
what you're saying.
yeah.
Terry Crews. Yeah, and it also doesn't help that I've heard things that The Rock wants to run in 2020,
Right?
It makes
which
me
I don't
sad.
want to see happen because
I love The
I,
Rock.
for one, am a wrestling fan, and as a wrestling fan, I would just like to say, as also an action movies fan, it sucked when Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California. We
Oh.
lost some of the best years of what could have remained of his career to politics.
I'm
If
a
that
huge,
doesn't make you an anarchist, I don't know what will.
I'm a huge Conan the Barbarian fan, so the Governator was not nearly as cool as Conan, that's for sure.
No. He also wasn't as cool as the Terminator.
No, not at all. He wasn't
No.
really as cool as anything that could be cool, to be honest.
Yeah. I like to assume that the Governator was basically one of the Terminators from one that was like the one from Terminator 1. Except was set to some kind of political thing. I don't know.
Skynet 2020 just dropped the nukes.
For real. Just bring in our machine overlords already.
That's a legitimate fear of mine. I'm not even joking.
I, for one, welcome
Yeah,
and accept our machine
it's,
overlords.
Hey, don't kiss their ass. Come on.
Nah, come on. That's Futurama
Okay,
reference.
no, we won't welcome the machines. But
Futurama reference.
But I won't a Simpsons reference, but
Oh, you're right.
I won't welcome the machines. But I, for one, will welcome our reptilian overlords.
There it is.
I'd like to remind them, as a trusted podcaster, that I can be trusted in rounding up others to toil on their cricket farms.
Oh boy.
Yes.
He got you with that Simpsons. He was like, "No, excuse me, the Simpsons."
I know. Hey, man.
I'm sorry, man.
No, you
I'm a
got to do what you
fanboy,
got to
I'm
do.
sorry.
I'm 4 in on these Oktoberfests already. They're too good, so.
Dude, I'm like, that was something that kind of bugged me this week. It was like apparently they're removing Apu from The Simpsons just because he offended some SJWs.
I just saw that today. What
It's
the
like-
hell is happening with that?
Yeah, there was a documentary that some quote unquote comedian, I'd never heard of him before. He made some documentary about why Apu is offensive and everything like that. And there's a few things that kind of bug me about this, just from a storytelling perspective and also from just being a fan of Matt Groening's work. There's one guy who already pointed out the if you look up Brain Dump, the Apu I know on YouTube, this guy basically already covers everything everything with Matt Groening wise. He covers everything from that side of the argument for me. However, when it comes to the whole argument of Apu as a character too, it's like, well, how do you know this character? Like, oh, this character doesn't represent us. Well, how do you know he wasn't meant to? How do you know he was meant to represent you? Like, how egotistical do you have to be?
Yeah, for real.
Like, when you look at the character more in depth, he's an immigrant who immigrated to the country, got his doctorates, eventually had to go through the legal means, even though he was illegal for a while, to become a citizen. He has a clear character arc. Everyone's not going to relate to that. And like some of the people they interview in this thing, it's like, mind you, Apu is a first generation immigrant. And it's like the people who they're interviewing in the movie are like, kids from my generation who were born in the States and, were raised under a whole different culture. So I don't know. That's just the way I see it.
Well,
and
is this kind of the nail in the coffin for The Simpsons? Has it run its course, do you think?
I mean, shit. For me, it ended when the Simpsons movie ended.
Oh, there you go.
And rolled credits. For me, that was when it ended in my head canon.
For sure.
But in my own head canon, it ended with the Simpsons movie. Because that just seems like a good way to end it. But yeah, it's honestly, who knows? Will people keep watching? Maybe. Either way, people like me haven't been watching for a long time, so we're not really a factor in the viewership anymore. So,
sure. So hey, I got a question that came up.
We've moved on to Futurama.
David made a post asking if anybody had questions for you, and there was one I found particularly interesting. It's kind of a long question. It's from his name's Jason Booth. He wanted to know your thoughts on a piece from Ben Stone's book, Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage Field Manual #1. Have you read that?
I have not, but I actually read his comment, and I did see that. I did kind of read that a little bit and pondered on it a little bit.
Oh, great!
Do you want to read it? Read the.
Yeah, I'll read. I'll read the quote. I'll go through the quote, and we can get into what you think about it. How about that?
Yeah, you just if you just want to read it off real quick, but yeah, I got an idea on that.
Okay, cool. So the passage from the book, which is Sedition, Subversion, and Sabotage Field Manual #1 by Ben Stone, that Jason Booth wants to know your thoughts on, is full-on agorism has its dangerous side. Every bowman in the woods who refuses to support Prince John runs the risk of being kidnapped by the sheriff. And anytime you find yourself in the hands of the state, your situation becomes precarious. State justice involves half-witted buffoons with badges enforcing the random edicts of crony politicians interpreted by judges who are typically failed attorneys lacking the energy, ability, or intelligence to live without the teat of government planted firmly in their mouth. So none of these people can be depended upon to act like predictable, civilized humans. Since the vast majority of agorism requires some kind of permanent base of operation, a farm, a compound, a storefront, or even a website, you become a stationary target for the Sheriff of Nottingham to come snorting around looking for a cut of your business. For this reason, agorism requires wisdom and an ongoing balancing act to teeter between full-on fiscal independence and just doing to support the agora, enough to support the agora without landing in a cage. Agorism is not the end-all be-all that some would have you believe, but it is a necessary step in the right direction. By itself, it will never, as Konkin had hoped, starve nor bleed the beast in any significant way. If our numbers somehow grew to the point that the state were ever seriously endangered by agorists, government agents would simply label us terrorists, demonize us in the mainstream media, round us up, and cage us or kill us. So, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. In many ways, to go back to 2017, there was a time when I was kind of, reflecting on philosophy and everything, reflecting on my own ideals, and reevaluating agorism, frankly, led me to a similar conclusion. It's definitely something that helps the world out a lot. It's something that I take it heavily has influenced my own philosophy that I seek to carve out myself. But at the same time, I do see somewhat of the flaws in it. But also, I choose to also see some of the good things that we can attribute from it. For instance, the black markets of North Korea have definitely helped get a trade going on of influx of media and pop culture that they would never have been exposed to if it weren't for smuggled in flash drives. So like things like that, I definitely like. And you know, the Chinese black market is always coming up with interesting emulation devices. Some are, a majority are shit, but you know, there's some good ones in there too. I'm pretty sure the Chinese government only turns a blind eye to that because they hate Japan so much. Just my theory. But when you look at geopolitics, you got to take things into perspective, even when looking at the different markets around it. When you think about it, like even with North Korea, I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if certain people from South Korea turned a blind eye to any sort of black market activity that went on there. But that's just me trying to think in terms of like, what if I were in that situation?
Well, that happened in a major way under Soviet rule, right? The black market thrived. I mean, Konkin references it in the Libertarian Manifesto.
Oh yeah, it thrived in the Soviet Union. Well, another thing that I don't remember Konkin talking about too much, and I wish I could remember this author. This is one of the few times when I was listening to conservative talk radio, I cannot remember this author's name, but if I can ever find his name, again, I need to get this guy's book to basically analyze this. I don't. Apparently, after the Soviet Union fell, these black market oligarchs were basically in charge for a brief period in Russia. And the general thought was put Putin in charge because he can be our puppet. That didn't go over so well.
No, obviously not.
Yeah. So I don't know what the full story is behind that, but that's basically what the guy told when he was on. I don't even remember whose conservative talk radio show it was, man. They used to listen to a lot of things when I was working at U-Haul.
Well, there's so many of them.
But, you know, it was... Yeah, well, that's the thing. It was one of those things that, like, it made me stop vacuuming the back of a truck for a second to be like, wait a minute, what's he saying on the radio?
That's awesome.
Like,
well, that's kind of an interesting segue.
Like that.
As far as the black market oligarchs kind of taking over, but they screwed the pooch on that one. We wanted to talk to you about your involvement in the cannabis industry, marijuana industry, and one interesting thing, just to jump in here, that I've seen, because my wife worked at a farm up here in Washington when we first moved up here, is that a lot of the people who are according to the state, legitimate businessmen now were in the black market beforehand, and they had a good jump because they were already in it.
Yeah, I don't know much about the black market side up there or anything like that. Sure. I know that from that movie, the Union, the business behind getting high, which did a pretty good job breaking down the black market for its time, but I'm sure things have probably changed since then with advancements in technology and whatnot. But really what I've been doing is I've been really taking my life's purpose and been said, you know what, fuck it to academia and all that and go straight on into the legal marijuana industry. And I'm now working as an affiliate for Learn Sativa University, even, which is a school here in Orlando that trains people to work in the industry, medical and or legal. And the certification actually carries across all states. And, I know with like agorism and stuff like that, people find this as a very touchy subject, but with the way I've kind of changed my perspective, you got to kind of get your way into popular culture. And in a sense, hear me out on this.
Sure.
In a sense, alcohol being made illegal in the 30s had some sort of positive effect on the popular culture and the way alcohol is viewed now. And don't believe me, just look back a few Super Bowls ago. Budweiser had an ad which was about the end of Prohibition, where there's no booze in town and everyone is sad. And then here come the Budweiser horses rolling up with their carriages full of beer. Like, come on, tell me that was not the case. Mm-hmm. So in a way, I could see that being some sort of benefit, going more into the white markets and stuff like that. What does worry me is overtaxation, which I've already been reading about in Colorado. But, I see this as an emerging industry. It's basically the new gold rush here in the U.S.
Sure.
And in Canada now, too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But even in Canada,
That's
it
been,
does
what,
worry me with
federally?
all the things I've been reading.
It's been federally legalized in Canada now, right?
Yeah, it's federally legalized, but they did go after a few dispensaries, I guess, in a few places in Toronto. I think I
Really?
might be wrong in the city, but I was reading that and I was like, oh God, that's hard to see happen. That's the risk you run with the white market too, because they don't want every business to be in there. They only want the ones that are going to pay up the mafioso. But
Right.
Yep.
you know, you got to. It's a game of chess. You got to give and take, the way I see it.
Sure.
And you know, I still see that we can do good things within this ball game. There's a lot more scientific advancements we can do that weren't available before because we just didn't have access to the proper things, or if we did, it wasn't always the best. You couldn't always trust the sources. So it does kind of lead to a little bit of a benefit there too. It's a give and take scenario.
Well, my question
And
for you would be, with jumping into the white market of marijuana industry with legalization, I guess, does agorism and the legal industry, do they dovetail? Is there a meeting point anywhere?
The meeting point, I'm pretty sure, would probably be some sort of decriminalization model, similar to Amsterdam's in some way or another. Because, you know, Amsterdam, or Holland, the Netherlands, whatever it's called in this century. I'm pissing off the Dutch. Watch the Dutch get all offended and start a hashtag or something.
I'm going to start that just for the trolling factor now.
But anyways, like to compliment them on this. The very liberal, and mind you, liberalism over there means more classical liberalism as compared to the shit liberalism we have here in the States.
Yeah.
They're very liberal government there in Amsterdam. The way they have it set up is it's not legal, but it's not illegal either. It's basically decriminalized. And where it kind of gets shitty with that is all the foreign governments getting all pissed off at the Dutch and saying you need to crack down on this more with tourists going and smoking pot in Amsterdam, and they obviously have not at all.
Is it a similar model to Portugal's?
No, Portugal, from what I understand, Portugal's decriminalization model, I honestly don't know much about theirs because I've never really heard of any sort of cultural things. Like, you never really hear about, like, any sort of, like, you know, the marijuana coffee shops of Amsterdam are almost iconic.
Sure.
You never hear about anything about Portugal. So maybe there is something. I'm just not aware of it. For hell, I found out about Christiania Denmark, and I never even knew about that one.
Well, from what I understand about Portugal is that it's as decriminalized as it can get. It's kind of just not on the books to a certain point, I guess. And anyone listening, correct me if I'm wrong, comment and stuff and let me know. But you're not going to get busted for small amounts for using on a personal level. But they have, I guess, some regulation as far as large operations for any drug, because they decriminalized all drugs as far as I'm aware. And they also treat addicts with, you know, they have medical treatment and probably psychological treatment for addicts as well.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I've seen on Portugal. Admittedly, that's the one that I haven't looked much into, but I am aware that Uruguay, they have a decriminalized model there too. Unfortunately, it is very not free market friendly. Basically, the government is the only supplier. It's $1 a gram.
For shit.
But is it garbage?
Yeah, for
probably.
For
I mean, it's from the
weed.
government. What do you expect?
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, right.
Like there's a meme out there. If government gave you a blunt and it just shows like a stem in a wrap,
Yeah.
like that's pretty much what it would be. That's what I imagine. But you know, that at least it's something. But with that one has me a little bit more worried, just because it's not very free market friendly, and you know, the more free market oriented side of me looks at that and is like, is this really something good, or is it something, who knows? I'm not from Uruguay. I don't know what it's like for people who live there. So I really can't speak in regards to like how this has affected things. I just know that these are the laws that I've read about.
Sure. Well, tell us about what you're doing. I'm interested to hear about this.
With me,
Yeah.
in the industry, basically, my goal is to eventually go into the grow industry. I would love to eventually get to the point where I'm practically. I don't know if you've seen that new South Park at all, where Randy goes and starts a Colorado marijuana farm. Like, I was like, Jesus Christ, that's fucking me, man. That's the
Nice.
dream. That's the goal. But I've always had an interest in agriculture as it is. So in a way, this felt like me rediscovering something that interested me when I was younger, but I just kind of forgot about. And it's really invigorated me. It's given me purpose. So like, that's where it's where I get this weird, I guess you can say, what's the word for it? This conflict of interest, conflict of morals when it comes to voting on any sort of legalization or anything like that. It's very conflicting for someone like me.
We've
It's like
talked
on one
about
end
that
I put
before.
all this money and shit all this stuff into a degree, but at the same time my anarchist morals are just like, oh god. Like,
Yeah, man. That's
if I ever did vote, like I would probably have like Purell in the car.
That's a really tough spot if you've thrown like your livelihood into the industry and it's dependent on the government's whim and begging for legalization or not.
Yeah, it's one of the reasons why I'm a little bit sympathetic towards the libertarians. At least that gives me some side to root for. Hell, if we're watching, going back to kayfabe and all that, if we're watching wrestling, I at least need a wrestler to root for.
You're talking about as far as voting and whatnot?
And when you think about it too, it's like rooting for the ultimate underdog who will never win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Those are always the best guys to root for. Any wrestling fan will agree with you.
Sure. I don't know. I'm not huge into wrestling, so I can't comment on that. Apologies.
I got you. No, you're good.
I'm not huge into wrestling or voting,
It's-
so I don't know what to say.
There you go.
Yeah, it was a video I sent David the other day, basically, that explains how politics and wrestling are so similar. And there's this thing called kayfabe, which is where you basically put on a mask to portray a character that you want the world to perceive as real. And yeah, that basically sums up politics the way I see it.
Well,
Definitely.
this whole conversation actually kind of ties back into the question from Jason Booth from the Sedition and Subversion field manual that we were talking about.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's
Way
all
off
good.
topic there. Sorry about that.
I just found it interesting how this dovetails in so well with that second part of the passage I read from that, where if Agorists ever become such a threat that the state is threatened by them, that the state's gonna come and eliminate or whatever, imprison and whatnot. So tying this in with whether or not you should vote for legalizing marijuana to work in the industry and whatnot versus going full on black market with it is the real question,
It really is. And you know what? At the end of the day, I realized that as much as agorism does have its benefits in many ways, once again, going back to the way it's benefited people in North Korea, I'm sure it's benefited people in Venezuela. I even brought up Dash helping people down there. And hell, it's even benefited like people who buy something like a Retron 5 that is a fucking emulation device. Wait, is that a Chinese one? I don't know. But there's a bunch of emulation devices basically out there. And, those type of things definitely do help in a way that they help steer the culture. But at the same time, the only way you're going to reach culture, the mainstream culture on any sort of level is if you break through in some way or another. And I guess in some ways I'm a sellout because of that, but you know what? like, I just take influence from philosophy. I'm not really trying to claim that I'm the voice of agorism.
No, absolutely.
It's a philosophy I enjoy. It's a philosophy I've enjoyed.
I think this is an interesting. It's a good place to build a bridge, as far as allies go, because I find myself talking to big L libertarians, in the party, people who advocate for voting and whatnot, probably more than I talk to Republicans or Democrats or whatever, and really getting into the more the more emotionally charged conversations, especially when it comes to voting, because the big L's, they want to vote for less taxes and possibly legalizing marijuana and putting their candidates in and whatnot. And I oppose voting 100% no matter what it is, just because of the implications, how voting is funded through taxation, just the act of voting and whatnot. But if people aren't going to give up the idea that they want to vote for this and that, I'm still not opposed to working with other people. I'm not going to violate the principles that I hold, but it's a good bridge. You know what I mean? Like, if other people want to do that,
yeah,
go for it. I'm not telling anybody what to do. I'm going to keep working in the way that I want to, and you do what you do, and we can find a middle ground.
Yeah, exactly. Like, that's where I always got confused with some of these like big L libertarians who get all like snobby and what have you done for liberty? Like, that's I think that's that's kind of the virtue signaling of the year for libertarians.
Oh, big time.
But yeah, there was one guy who blew up on me because of that. Who another podcaster who remain unnamed, but. I basically said, no, I'm not going to vote for Gary Johnson in 2016. And why are you going to vote, man? Oh, you little ANCAPs are all what's wrong with the libertarian. But it's like, dude, what the fuck? This came out of nowhere.
Jesus.
We've had good conversations before. Where did this come from? It's almost like you hit the same trigger button you would on a social justice warrior.
It's a world of NPCs.
Like, legit. Like, sometimes it feels like that.
Truth.
PCs. Ugh. God, that meme is relevant.
Relevant in every situation, too.
I'd like to say something about when you throw your hat into the white market there, you always run the risk, like with what you're doing with the legal pot and all that. You're always running the risk of them changing things around, regulations, laws, whatever, and pulling the rug out from under you, and then you lose like a lot.
Exactly. That's one thing that worries me. Well, one thing that freaking this worries the hell out of me, because I've come to the conclusion, just from looking at history, once you give the government something, it is a pain in the ass to get it back, and you will never get it back the same way it was before you gave it to them. Like healthcare, they're talking about like reforming Obamacare and shit. It's like a free market, I think, is just now out of the question. They're not. So? They've already shifted it so far. Well, not for people like us, but like trying to shift the debate anywhere towards there for most people, they've done a good job, the powers that be.
Well, I think the doctors
making it
involved
hard
in this
to argue
stuff,
a certain position.
I think the doctors involved in this stuff are taking it into their own hands. This is kind of a segue from where we're at, but with direct primary care, I don't know if you've ever looked into that. Doctors are sick and fucking tired of the scam that goes on with insurance and government, and they're just backing out completely because they were losing their practices and whatnot.
Good.
And they would have had to join into like a conglomerate or with a hospital, something like that. And now they're backing out completely, reforming their own private practice and having a monthly subscription to be one of their patients. And then, certain small services or even big services, they have their own prices, I guess, on top of that monthly subscription that covers your checkups and whatnot. And yeah, I think they're saying, fuck all that. I'm not even, I'm tired of being screwed. I'm going to get out of that. And they're still operating. I don't even know if it would be the gray market. It's probably the white market, but it's a great example of, the action that can be taken there. And they even put
Sounds like
money and time aside for charity for people who can't afford it, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah, that's market actors speaking very loudly.
Oh yeah, that's definitely really awesome though. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah, there's a direct primary care physicians in like every major city and even small cities. If you, there's a database, you can Google it and look up and see if there's any in your area. For anybody who's listening who's interested in that, that's what I do, because I'm not interested in paying insurance companies $400 for a bag of saline that costs $2 to make if I need an IV. I'd rather support a doctor who's there to actually, help heal you.
Exactly. They're the ones helping you out anyway.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, I kind of, steamrolled there. Back to what we were saying.
Gouging. No, you're good though. I was unaware of that. No, like that's actually pretty mind blowing. Like I'm glad to see that someone out there is doing something. Because as far as like the conventional insurance shit goes, you're never gonna get that back to the way it was before. If anyone liked it like that before. No. Just a mess.
What I was going to say, added on to what I was talking about the white markets with cannabis and such. I knew people around here when it was more medical dispensary style, like that setup before it was recreationally legal. And when they made the switch and it went from medicinal to, recreational, those businesses that had been set up as medicinal dispensaries got shafted. A lot of them frantically tried to switch over and be recreational because all of a sudden they weren't within, the laws anymore. They weren't following the law anymore. So a lot of places, they completely went out of business. So everything that they had put into, their place of business was just suddenly gone at the whim of the state.
Yeah, exactly, and that's some bullshit, basically. It's the type of thing that always has me worried.
That's just like a word of warning for people,
Yeah, but you got to do what you got to do.
True that.
I'm willing to roll the dice. Hit me. For anyone who's ever played blackjack. But yeah, I definitely see a bright future in there. Hopefully, and God, I never thought I would say this sentence. Hopefully the Trump administration will fucking change shit. But something tells me that he's not going to do shit. Just like Obama never did shit. Just like any other president who seemed like they could have maybe been sympathetic or less statist. Like, just like any other president, I don't expect it to just change through that avenue.
A president less statist. That's pretty interesting. That'll never happen.
I don't know how to phrase it, man.
I'm sitting here like,
It's, it's like, under Obama, everyone thought, oh, man, is he going to legalize it? No. He straight up laughs at people whenever he was asked about it. To the point where they finally just stopped giving him the question or something like that. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's a football issue is what it comes down to. It's one of those things that they don't ever want to make any sort of radical thing one way or the other because it's just small enough of an issue that they can use it to get support and basically get reelected.
Well, I think
I stick with the idea that...
Go ahead, David.
I stick with the idea that, them being able to say, okay, it's fine now, or okay, no, it's still bad. Like that just is giving them that authority that they don't actually have.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, exactly. That's why best possible solution, and this is the classical liberal in me talking, the best possible solution would be basically get something like this put into the Constitution, kind of like it was for making alcohol legal again, because then that makes it a hell of a lot harder for any sort of special interest that would want to fuck with it to change it again. I know I rag on the Constitution just as much as you guys do.
Sure.
But like this is just me trying to think in terms of like, okay, if I'm playing blackjack, you know, I'm not gonna try and get a full house.
Right. Well, I kind of see
Like,
it the other way.
If I'm playing the slot machine, I'm not gonna roll some dice.
Yeah, for sure. But you know, keeping it out of the Constitution, I think that the question of, because we're talking about Trump trying to make it legal federally, right? That's where we're at. Sorry, I had to step away for a second.
Yeah, and they're
Yeah.
and that's where it's the most confusing fucking thing in the world because.
Well, I was just gonna say, I think it's just it's not an issue in people's minds as much anymore, and so it's kind of safe for him to, you know, say, hey, we can do this, because he's not gonna get shit from the right, because the right really doesn't fucking care about weed anymore. I don't even think it's a stirring the pot kind of thing. It's one of the last issues that people are concerned about.
Yeah, it feels like it's the really old Republicans who are still the ones still grasping to the drug war, and even then, it feels like it's just died at this point.
Yeah, it's like the last people who vote.
Like, pretty much. Oof. Yeah, you almost. Really, it's just one of those things. Like, you wish the drug war would just be done and over with. Like,
oh man, we could do a whole nother podcast about the drug
It would-
why it's not done and over with, and who it benefits. Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah.
oh yeah, there's a lot. We can go down a big rabbit hole with that.
Government
Prison
makes
industrial.
too much money off of that. There's no way.
Oh yeah.
Fucking
Hey, where will the police get their money to go bust quote unquote drug dealers?
Oh yeah, or post social media photos with their sweet new Ferraris.
Oh God.
That shit. Who are they looking to impress? Like, that's what I never understand about
I'll tell
those
you
posts.
exactly who.
Like,
Because I know exactly who they're looking to impress. Because it's a stereotype that holds up. It's a bunch of fucking peaked in high school dumbass motherfuckers that had an IQ just low enough to make the police force because they could follow orders, same as the military. And so now they're like, oh, fuck yeah. 17, 18-year-old girls will love this fucking Ferrari. That's who they're looking to impress, even though they're married.
Right. I completely agree.
I never put two and two together, but now that you say that, it makes so much sense.
It's true. Man.
That's why they post pictures with their stolen loot and stuff, with all the guns and drugs and money, like they're just typical high school like thug wannabes. Like,
like, I'm just thinking back to the thug wannabes that I went to high school with, and their Instagrams or their Facebooks, and like just thinking of those, and then thinking of like one of those other ones who posts like, look at this huge bust, and like all the drugs and all the money and shit.
Yeah.
Like,
posed in front of it, like,
yeah,
we're so cool. Yeah.
God, it's the exact same.
I saw probably the most disgusting thing, one of the most disgusting things, besides like, all the brutality posts and whatnot like that. But I saw there was a straight up photo shoot for a widow of a cop that was killed in the line of duty and his 3 daughters. Straight up photo shoot with a bunch of other cops from their whatever the fuck they were, sheriffs, PD, whatnot, and like police dogs laying down there, just making everything all sad to commemorate his 1-year death anniversary or something like that. It's like, Jesus fucking Christ. You're just conditioning these children to fall right back into that fucking role. Like, I don't know. I don't even know where to go with that. It just pissed me off.
Yeah, it's kind of that whole blowback thing that Ron Paul talks about. You bomb a terrorist, the terrorist kid then picks up the rifle and becomes the terrorist.
God damn, that's a great point. Yeah, they're just conditioning him to fight in their own terrorist, whatever, whether or not they're picking up a rifle. Those kids are going to be supporting the thin blue line. That's for goddamn sure.
Yeah. And that's why I'm an advocate of nonviolence. It's like when you do violent things that you create that kind of blowback.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I
Those
believe there's a
truths.
very distinct difference
Yeah.
between violence and force, especially force in self-defense. But yeah, we've hit
Yeah.
an hour and a half, man. This is our longest cast, but it's been great. I've really enjoyed it. Is there anything else you want
Damn.
to bring up? Because we can keep going if you got other stuff. If not, we can call it a cast.
Nothing much, man. But yeah, I definitely had a fun time coming on here, and keep an eye out on Agoristball because I'm probably gonna end up starting that live stream coming up here soon when I get this new computer all set up, and be sure to go like Agoristball and Agorist Memes. If you liked any of the stuff you heard about the legal marijuana industry and learn sativa, go check out their website. If you end up signing up for a course, use the coupon code Mitch10, Mitch in all capital letters, and you'll get 10% off. I'll leave it off to you.
Yeah, definitely keep an eye on Mitch. He's going to do great things. He's already doing great things. I love talking with you, man. It's really great to have you on here.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it was a good show. Good show, guys.
Fucking A. Good
And
stuff.
remember, anybody listening, this episode is for you guys to join in on. So get a hold of one of us to try to come in on the show, and we'd love to have you. We love having these conversations. Be sure to go out and like the podcast page, Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash. And if you'd like to advertise on our podcast, you can hit us up at dankpodstash@gmail.com.
Yeah, or message me or, at Nick Irwin on Facebook. Hit up David Ballantyne on Facebook. Get into that Washington State Anarchists and Libertarians Facebook group. We'd love to have you in there. Yeah, we're coming up with some new fun ideas for the Podstash. We're going to be doing a couple more little things here and there, and we really want to involve everyone who's interested in agorism and anarchy and just living freely. We want to involve everybody. We want to empower everyone's voices, and, not go down the road of a few big voices. Everyone needs to have a strong voice. We all need to get in this together and at the same time be individuals. So hit us up on Facebook, Enemy of the State's Dank Podstash, Gmail. It's dankpodstash@gmail.com. Look out for Mitch on Agoristball, on Agorist Memes, Black Market Memes, all the things I can possibly plug right now. Either way, this was a great cast, guys. I had a lot of fun, and we'll talk to you all next time.